He assumed it was only a healing pod until the alien princess cuddled close. First contact. The air tasted like honey and starlight as Ethan Mercer pushed through the dense foliage of Lumeria's western forest. 6 weeks. Into his solo scouting mission, and this planet still managed to surprise him. The vegetation glowed with soft bioluminescence, blues and purples that pulsed like gentle heartbeats. Delicate spores floated through the air, catching the light of the twin moons that hung low in the lavender sky. His equipment detected a water source nearby, and Ethan adjusted his course. The Terran Exploration Initiative had sent him to catalog Lumeria's natural resources, but they hadn't prepared him for its beauty. Every day felt like wandering through a dream. The sound of rushing water grew louder, and Ethan emerged into a clearing. A waterfall cascaded from a cliff overhead, plunging into a crystalline pool surrounded by smooth, luminous stones. Steam rose from the surface, catching the light of the bioluminescent plants and creating a mist that shimmered with prismatic colors. Ethan was about to approach the water when he noticed something at the pool's edge. A large, flower-like structure, its petals glowing with an intense turquoise light. Inside lay a figure. "Damn it," he muttered, rushing forward. His heart raced as he recognized the figure as humanoid. The TEI briefings had mentioned the Lumerians, but he hadn't encountered any yet, and this one appeared injured or ill, lying in what his scanner identified as a biological healing pod. As he drew closer, he could see the figure clearly, a woman with skin the color of dawn, a soft violet pink that seemed to shimmer with tiny points of light like embedded stars. Her hair flowed around her in long flowing strands the color of deep emerald. She wore a simple white garment that draped over her curved form and sheer flowing pants that revealed a soft glow beneath. Ethan checked his universal translator and knelt beside the pod. "Hello? Can you hear me?" he asked, his voice soft with concern. "I'm Ethan Mercer from Earth. Are you hurt?" The woman's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of brilliant turquoise that seemed to glow from within. She gazed at him without fear, her expression curious rather than alarmed. Slowly she sat up, the healing pod's petals opening wider to accommodate her movement. "You're not Lumerian," she said, her voice melodic and clear through his translator. "You're the visitor from the stars, the human." Ethan nodded, relieved she was conscious and seemingly uninjured. "Yes, I thought you were hurt. Is this a healing pod?" A soft laugh escaped her lips like the tinkling of crystal. "No, it's a resting bloom. I come here to escape, to find solitude." She studied him with undisguised fascination. "I am Naire." "Naire," he repeated, the name feeling strangely right on his tongue. "I'm sorry for disturbing your rest." "Don't be," she said, rising gracefully from the bloom. She was tall, nearly matching his 6-foot frame. "I've been curious about humans since we received word of your arrival." Ethan became acutely aware of how close she stood. The standard protocols for first contact seemed irrelevant now. This wasn't a first contact situation for her people, just for him personally. And yet, something about her presence made his training flee his mind. "You're a scout," she observed, reaching out hesitantly. "May I?" Ethan nodded, and Naire placed her hand against his chest over his heart. Her touch was warm, slightly warmer than a human's, and a subtle current seemed to pass between them, like the gentlest electrical charge. "Your heart," she murmured. "It beat so quickly, so human." She looked up at him, her turquoise eyes wide with wonder. Ours beat much slower, steadier. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier. The droplets caught the bioluminescent light, creating a shower of color around them. Without thinking, Ethan reached out to brush a raindrop from her cheek. Her skin felt like velvet beneath his fingers. Naire didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned closer, pressing herself gently against him. "I came here to escape my duties," she said softly. "I am Naire Volantis, daughter of the High Council." "Your royalty?" Ethan asked, suddenly feeling out of his depth. "Something like that," she said with a small smile. "But here, by this pool, I am just Naire." She took his hand and led him to a smooth stone by the water's edge. As they sat, The rain eased, leaving the air heavy with moisture and the sweet scent of the forest. Mist rose from the waterfall, enveloping them in a private world of shifting colors. "Tell me about Earth," she said, her fingers tracing the lines of his palm. "Tell me about the world that made you." As Ethan spoke of oceans and mountains, cities and deserts, Nire listened with rapt attention. When he finished, she gazed out at the waterfall, a certain sadness in her eyes. "My people have forgotten how to connect," she said. "We live long lives, but we've grown distant from one another. Touch, passion, vulnerability, these have become rare." She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the pool. "But you, humans, you carry such intensity in everything you do." The air between them seemed to charge with unspoken possibility. Nire stood and stepped toward the water, the droplets clinging to her glowing skin as she dipped her feet into the pool. Her garment clung to her form, revealing the curves of her body. She turned to look at him over her shoulder, a half-smile playing on her lips. "Come closer, Ethan of Earth," she said, her voice like a caress. "Let me feel your human heart again." And as the twin moons rose higher in the alien sky, Ethan knew his mission on Lumeria had just become infinitely more complicated and infinitely more important than he could have ever imagined. The water of the luminescent pool lapped gently against Nire's ankles as Ethan approached. His scout training had covered countless scenarios, hostile environments, dangerous wildlife, even potential conflicts, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Our scientists say humans are remarkably adaptable," Nire said, her turquoise eyes studying him intently. "Is that why you ventured alone to our world?" Ethan knelt by the water's edge, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Partly. The TEI, my organization, believes solo scouts form more authentic connections with new worlds." "And what connections have you formed with Lumeria so far?" she asked, extending her hand. He took it, noticing how the tiny starlight points in. Her skin brightened at his touch. "Until today, mostly with the plants and wildlife. Your forests, they're alive in a way Earth's aren't." Nire smiled, pulling him gently into the shallows beside her. The water was surprisingly warm, almost like stepping into a bath. Small creatures that resembled glowing tadpoles darted away from their feet, leaving trails of light in their wake. "The forest knows you're here," she explained. "All life on Lumeria is connected through what we call the resonance, a network of energy that flows through everything." She lifted a handful of water, letting it trickle through her fingers. "Even this water carries memories." "That sounds like something from Earth mythology," Ethan said. "Some cultures believed in a world spirit or consciousness." "Perhaps your ancestors understood more than your scientists do now," Nire said, her voice gentle rather than judgmental. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving the air clean and sweet. Ethan watched as Nire waded deeper, the water reaching her waist, making the sheer fabric of her garments cling to her form. The bioluminescent plants surrounding the pool seemed to respond to her presence, pulsing brighter as she moved past. "Them? You said your people have grown distant," Ethan said, following her into the water. "Why is that?" Nire's expression grew contemplative. "Longevity breeds caution. When you might live for centuries, you become careful with your heart." She turned to face him, sending ripples across the surface of the pool. "Opening yourself to another means centuries of vulnerability. Many find it easier to remain closed." "But not you?" Ethan asked. "I've always been considered unusual," she admitted with a small smile. "Too curious, too willing to feel." Her fingers traced patterns in the water between them. "The High Council says these traits make me unpredictable, unsuitable." "Unsuitable for what?" "Leadership," she said simply. "One day I am expected to take my place among the eternal guides of Lumeria. They believe emotion clouds judgment." Ethan moved closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. "On Earth we often say the opposite, that without emotion, decisions lack humanity." "Humanity," Nire repeated as if tasting the word. "What a beautiful concept, to make your very species' name synonymous with compassion." She reached out, her fingers hovering near his face. "May I?" When he nodded, she traced the contours of his features, the arch of his eyebrows, the bridge of his nose, the line of his jaw. Her touch was feather light, explorative rather than invasive. Your face shows everything you feel, she observed. Every hope, every fear written here for anyone to read. And that's different for Lumerians? Ethan asked, acutely aware of her proximity. We learn to still our expressions from childhood, she explained. Emotions are private things, to be shared only in the most intimate settings. Like this one, he asked, gesturing to the secluded pool. Nire's lips curved into a smile that reached her eyes, making them glow brighter. Yes, like this one. She moved away suddenly, diving beneath the surface. The water illuminated her form as she swam, making her appear like a living constellation. When she resurfaced several feet away, her emerald hair clung to her shoulders, water droplets catching the light like diamonds against her skin. Tell me more about human connection, she called to him. How do your people share themselves? Ethan swam toward her, the warm water making his movements effortless. In countless ways, through art, music, conversation, touch. He paused as he reached her. We're not so different from Lumerians in what we need, just in how freely we express it. Show me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Show me how humans express connection. Heart racing, Ethan reached out, taking her hand in his. We start with touch, he said, lacing his fingers through hers. Simple at first. He guided her hand to rest against his chest, over his heart. We share our rhythms. Nire closed her, eyes focusing on the beat beneath her palm. So fast, she murmured, like a hummingbird's wings. Faster now because of you, he admitted. Her eyes opened, meeting his with newfound understanding. The resonance works differently between people than between plants, she explained. It requires intention, permission. She placed his hand over her heart. May I share mine with you? Ethan nodded, not entirely understanding but willing to follow her lead. Beneath his palm, her heart beat steadily, but as he concentrated, he felt something more. A gentle vibration that seemed to flow from her into him, carrying with it impressions of wonder, curiosity, and a loneliness he recognized from his own solitary journeys. I can feel, he stammered, overwhelmed by the sensation. Just echoes, she said. Surface emotions. The resonance grows stronger with trust and time. They floated together in the center of the pool, connected by touch and something. Deeper, as the forest around them pulsed with light. Ethan felt stripped of his scientific objectivity, yet somehow more clear-headed than he'd been in years. Why did you really come to this place today? He asked. Nire looked toward the waterfall, its constant flow catching the bioluminescent light. Tomorrow, I begin the trials of ascension, tests to determine if I am worthy to join the High Council. I needed one last moment of freedom. And I interrupted it, Ethan said, regret coloring his voice. No, she replied, turning back to him. You transformed it. Her hand rose to cup his cheek. For the first time in my life, I don't feel alone with my thoughts. The admission hung between them, weighted with significance. Slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she wished, Ethan leaned forward until his forehead rested against hers. Their breath mingled in the narrow space between them. In human tradition, he said softly, this is how we begin to truly know someone. Nire's eyes shimmered with emotion as she pressed closer, eliminating the remaining distance. Then let us begin, she whispered against his lips. As they kissed beneath the twin moons of Lumeria, the forest around them erupted in waves of light. As if celebrating a connection it had waited centuries to witness. Neither Ethan nor Nire noticed, lost as they were in the discovery of each other. Two beings from different worlds finding unexpected harmony in the universal language of touch. Dawn broke over the forest in bands of amber and rose, filtering through the canopy to dapple the ground with warm light. Ethan woke first, momentarily disoriented, until his eyes found Nire beside him. They had spent the night talking by the pool, eventually falling asleep on a bed of soft moss that seemed to mold itself to their bodies. Nire slept peacefully, her emerald hair spread around her like a halo, her chest rising and falling with each slow breath. In sleep, her face looked younger, unburdened by the responsibilities she had described to him. Ethan resisted the urge to touch her, not wanting to disturb her rest. Instead, he took in their surroundings. The bioluminescent plants had dimmed with the coming of daylight, but still emitted a soft glow. The waterfall caught the morning sun, throwing rainbows across the clearing. It was almost painfully beautiful, like Naire herself. A sound from the forest edge made Ethan tense. He reached instinctively for his scanner, which lay beside their makeshift bed. The device showed multiple life forms approaching, large ones, moving with purpose. "Nire," he whispered, gently touching her shoulder. "Someone's coming." Her eyes opened immediately, turquoise irises focusing with remarkable clarity. "How many?" she asked, fully alert despite having just woken. "At least 6, Ethan replied, impressed by her composure. Nire sat up, her expression shifting to something more guarded, more regal. "The Royal Guard," she said, smoothing her garments. "They were bound to find me eventually." Before Ethan could respond, 6 tall figures emerged from the tree line. They wore armor that seemed to be made from the same bioluminescent material as the plants, but hardened into protective plates. Each carried a staff that hummed with energy. "Princess Volantis," the lead guard called, his deep voice echoing across the clearing. "The High Council requires your presence. The trials begin at midday." Ethan felt Nire tense beside him. I'm aware of my obligations, Captain Jorith," she responded, her voice taking on a formal tone he hadn't heard before. "I will return shortly." The captain's gaze shifted to Ethan, his expression hardening. "You bring the off-worlder to the sacred pools? This is forbidden." "I brought no one," Nire countered, rising to her feet with fluid grace. "The human found this place on his own, which means the forest deemed him worthy to enter." The guards exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with her interpretation. The captain stepped forward, his hand tightening on his staff. "The human must be questioned. The trials cannot be compromised." Ethan stood as well, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "I'm a scout with the Terran Exploration Initiative," he explained. "I'm authorized to catalog Lumeria's ecosystem. I had no idea this was a restricted area." "Your ignorance does not excuse your presence," the captain replied coldly. "The sacred pools have been closed to outsiders for millennia." Nire moved between them, her posture straight and commanding. "Captain, this human poses no threat to the trials or to Lumeria. I vouch for him with my title and honor." A tense silence followed her declaration. Ethan could see the conflict in the captain's face, respect for Nire's position warring with strict adherence to protocol. "Princess," one of the other guards said, a female with striking silver markings on her violet skin, "your father specifically requested we bring you directly to the preparation chambers. The final council convenes in 3 hours." Nire's composed expression never wavered, but Ethan felt a subtle shift in the energy around her, the resonance, she had called it, betraying her inner turmoil. "Very well, Lieutenant Tala," she conceded, "but the human comes with us. If the council wishes to question him, they may do so formally with proper diplomatic protocols observed." The captain looked like he wanted to object further, but finally gave a curt nod. "As you wish, Princess, but he will be under guard at all times." "I would expect nothing less," Nire replied coolly. As the guards formed a perimeter around them, Nire turned to Ethan, her public face slipping momentarily to reveal concern. "I'm sorry about this," she whispered. "Royal Guards take their duties very seriously." "It's all right," Ethan assured her, though his heart raced with uncertainty. "I've dealt with protective escorts before." "This is different," she warned. "We're heading to Valoria, the Crystal City. Few outsiders have ever seen it." Before he could ask more questions, the captain gave a command, and the group began moving through the forest. 2 guards took the lead, 2 flanked them on either side, and 2 brought up the rear. Ethan noted that despite their rigid formation, they moved through the dense foliage with remarkable ease, barely disturbing the plants around them. As they walked, Nire maintained a formal distance from him, though occasionally their hands would brush, sending a now familiar current between them. Each time the tiny star-like points in her skin would brighten momentarily, a reaction she seemed unable to control. "The trials of ascension," Ethan said quietly after they had been walking for some time. "What exactly do they entail?" Nire glanced at him, her voice equally low. 3 challenges to test mind, body, and spirit. If I succeed, I join the High Council as an eternal guide. If I fail—" She left the sentence unfinished. "What happens if you fail?" Ethan pressed. "I remain as I am, a princess with potential but no true power to shape Lumeria's future." Her expression grew distant. "My people face difficulties that the current council refuses to acknowledge. Without a voice among them, I cannot help implement the changes we need." The forest began to thin, and suddenly they emerged onto a vast plain. Ethan stopped in his tracks, momentarily stunned by the view before him. Rising from the center of the plain was a city unlike anything he had ever seen, towering spires of crystal that caught the sunlight and fractured it into thousands of colors. The buildings seemed to grow from the ground itself, their structures flowing organically upward in impossible configurations that defied Earth architecture.